Hey guys, so today I'm doing a tutorial on how to sew your front zipper fly or your zipper fly, whichever one you call it. So basically what you would need is your trouser piece. Obviously you're going to need your trouser, and then you're going to need your zipper fly extension. Now this you're going to have 4 pieces, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 of which you've attached your stay. Okay, you can see how it's cut, and there's also like a notch here. Now how you get this particular piece, it's from your trouser. Okay, so basically when you're cutting your trouser, I'm going to try and make an illustration here. So normally when you're cutting your trouser on your pattern, right, this is your hip and this is your crotch. Sorry, please don't mind my sketch. Right now, when you cut this part out, okay, from the trouser, this is what you're going to use to get here. So basically after cutting out your trouser, now this is from the front part, okay? And also remember, take note of your hip point, right? So once you've cut this out, you're going to have like an just this piece here. So what you do is you measure out 2.5 inch, okay, 2.5 inch, and just rule a straight line. Remember, this one is no longer there, right? So measure 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch, rule a straight line. So that would give you from here, okay, that will give you this, right? So basically it would be like this. Okay, so you just measure 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch, draw a straight line, and then you cut it out. Okay, so you don't need to draw this curve anymore. The curve needs to be exactly the same on the pants, which is why you use the piece that you cut out from this part. Okay, now once you've done that, you're going to notch this bit up like this, just like this. Okay, then you can use this piece to cut the other part. So now that we've understood how to get this done, we're going to go ahead and start the sewing process. So the first thing we want to do is now we're going to take one of this and one of this. You have to take note of the right and the wrong sides. Okay, so this is the wrong side of this, so I'm just going to mark. So it means this goes to this. Okay, so it serves as the lining piece for it. Okay, and this goes for this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this curved part, okay, from this point. All right, we're stitching from this point, not from the notched point. From this point we're just going to stitch all the way and then top stitch it. Once we've stitched all the way, we're going to go ahead, open it out, top stitch it, making sure that the excess is facing the lining piece. Okay, we're going to top stitch it and then open it out. So I'm going to go ahead, do that, and show you guys what it looks like. Okay guys, so as you can see, I have stitched it, remember, from this point all the way to the top. So I stitched with 1/4 inch. Now the next thing you want to do is to top stitch it. Okay, so when you're top stitching it, right, make sure that the excess is facing the piece without the stay on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and I have top stitched it on the lining part. I don't know if you guys can see the stitch, but yeah, I've top stitched on the lining part. And then the next thing you would do is to go ahead and then sew this part down all the way to this point. So I've gone ahead and done the first part. So this is what you're going to have. As you can see, this is the stitch line. So you stitched from the top all the way down, and also to the curve here. So this is what you're going to have. So I'm going to go ahead and weave this on my weaving machine and then give it a good press and come back to show you guys what it looks like. Okay guys, so this is what our fly extension looks like. Okay, so we have two of it, as you can see. Now if you check the way I weaved this part, I weaved here separately, so I didn't do like one big swoop like a curve. No, you have to weave the side separately straight before weaving here. Okay, so you still have that sharp pointy edge. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a zip. Okay, so this is the zip I'm using, the short trouser zip. Now what you want to do is to take okay, now when you check on your flap, the right side, the one with the right side, okay, you have two flap extension. When you place both of them this way, and you place both of them, the curved edge facing your left, the one that you have the right side facing up, that's the one you're going to take to insert your zip. Now when you place your zip, you want to make sure that this edge, right, you want to make sure that this edge is on this tip here. So this is how you're going to place it. All right, it's on the tip, so this is how you place it. Do you understand? So that notched part, the sharp edge of that notched part is just slightly above. Okay, so that's how we're going to place it. Now you place and pin down if you need to. Do the same thing. So I'm just going to go ahead, quickly pin this. All the way to the top. So this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead and just stitch down this part, okay? And I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so this has been stitched down and this is what it looks like. So you can see my stitch line here, okay? So once this has been done, the next thing I want to do is to take my trouser piece, the front piece, okay? So we're taking the right leg of the trouser, okay? Now we're going to set this aside for now, and we're taking the right leg of our trouser. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this fly extension to the trouser. Now what you want to do is to make sure that this notched edge also, remember I said to mark your hip point, so this is the notched part of my hip point. So that's where you want to place this together. Okay, so you want to place the edge to the edge, pin down, and then sew it. Okay, you're going to sew it straight with 1/2 inch. So guys, I've gone ahead and I've stitched down. Now you can sew with 1/2 inch or sew it as close as you can to the zip. Okay, you want to make sure you sew it as close. Although this side doesn't really matter because it's going to be covered, but just make sure you try and sew it as close as you can to the zip part. Okay, so once we've stitched this part, we're going to go ahead now and we're going to top stitch on this part just like this. Okay, so this is what it's looking like. We're going to top stitch on this part. Now before we top stitch on this part, remember the side where we notched on, which is your hip line we notched, where this sharp point started. You want to make sure that you notch it into the point where you stitched your pant, the zipper fly to your trouser. So make sure you notch it like this. So once you've notched it like this, it will give you the room to be able to do this. So you want to bring this part of the trouser out, okay, so that you can have this. That's why you notch it. So you want to be able to bring this part up while this other part is going down. So you place it like this before you go ahead and top stitch it. Okay, good. So I've gone ahead and I have top stitched it, and this is what it's looking like. So we fixed this first fly on the zip and also to the right leg of the pants. So once we're done with this, we're going to take the left leg of the pants, and then we'll put in this other one aside, and then we're going to take our second fly. Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and change this. I actually use my zipper foot to fix my zip and everything about the other fly, so you can go ahead and do the same. Zipper foot makes sewing your zip much easier. Okay, so we want to do the same thing we did to the other leg. The only difference is that there is no zip on this, so we're still going to go ahead, make sure that the edge, okay, this part, which is the pointy part, is also aligned to the notch where the part where we notched. So we'll do the same thing, just pin it down, go ahead and then sew it out by 1/2 inch. Okay, so once you've sewn this down by 1/2 inch, so we'll still as you can see, I've gone ahead. Remember, when you're stitching it, okay, make sure that you stop exactly on the point where we notched. Okay, so we're not going to sew all the way down, and make sure you don't go beyond this point that was notched. Okay, so even this one, even if this part is extending down a little, leave it that way. Don't go beyond it or try to stitch this down all the way. Make sure you stop exactly on the notched point, which is where the curve or the slant of this trouser fly actually starts from. So once you've done that, you notch it all the way, making sure that both pieces, this can be moved. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to top stitch on this. So we're going to make sure that this flap is facing the flap here is facing the 1/2 inch we sewed out. So we're going to top stitch on the flap side. Okay, this time around we're not top stitching on the main fabric, unlike the other side we top stitched on the main fabric. So this one we're going to top stitch it on the flap, making sure that the excess or the seam allowance is facing the flap side. So I'll go ahead and do that. And also remember, you're going to bring this we're going to bring this other piece out, okay, just like we did the first one. So guys, this is what we have. Okay, remember I said we're top stitching. This is what we have. Remember I said we're top stitching on the flap side, not on the main fabric. And then we also brought out this part. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to take the previous one we stitched, okay, which is the right leg. Now this is where the part that gets a little bit tricky, but you just need to understand it, because it's very important you do exactly what I'm about to show you. This helps to make sure that the flap is properly covered. Okay, now this is both legs, right? So you want to pin this point together, making sure it's equal. Now this is the part that is very important. So when placing this, okay, the part with the zip is at the bottom, while the one without the zip, just the flap, is at the top. Now this is very important. When placing it, you want to make sure that the upper one, you're not going to place it equal, okay, like this. No, the only side that will be equal will be this edge, which is like towards the side seam. So this other one, you want to shift it out a little, okay, just very little. maybe so don't get me wrong, it's still going to be equal on the notched part, but in terms of placement, instead of placing this equal together like this, we're going to push the upper one out a little bit. Okay guys, so I just went ahead and marked this. So what I was trying to say is, when you pin it, if you notice, the upper one slightly, slightly went inside more than the bottom one. Okay, so which makes it look this way. You're not putting it equal. The reason why you shift it in a little bit is because you want this part to be able to have a little space like this to overlap the zip part, so that the zip part is not showing at all. Okay, so you want to have like a little space like this, so it should come out a little like this. Okay, now once you've done that, you can pin it down so it doesn't move. Then you want to take note of this stopper here, because we're going to start sewing just a little above the stopper, which is why I've marked it here. Okay, so this is my stopper, right? This is my stopper, which is somewhere here, so just slightly above the stopper, and you want to stitch very close to the edge of this you're stitching. Okay, so take note of where it's going to be on this part. Okay, so you don't want to go in too much, just very close to the stitching you did here, which is this stitch line, very close to it, and you're going to connect it back. Okay, back to your 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that down. Now the first stitch you want to make, you're not going to back tack it, so you just want to stitch it a little bit, just the first stitch from this point to this point. Remember, do not back tack, so that if it doesn't come out the way you want, you can easily lose and redo it. Okay, so once you've done the first stitch and you check it, everything is okay, you can now go ahead and sew a second stitch, which you will back tack. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So I've gone ahead and done my first stitch. As you can see, I did not back tack it. So what I'm going to do is to open it out and see if it overlaps well. Okay, and see if everything is laying properly like I want it to. So I'm just arranging it very well to check. Now you see what I was saying. You see that you see the reason why, let me see. Okay, now you see the reason why you do that overlapping, so that it can, this upper one can cover this stitch line. Okay, so this is perfect. I'm going to just go back and double stitch it and tack it. So this is what we want to have at the end of the day. Okay, you can see everything is covered. This is what we were trying to go for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and double stitch and then come back. So now I have finished double stitching and tacking. Now take note, I did not stitch all the way, to this point. I left about 1 inch. Okay, this is very important. Do not stitch all the way. You will understand why later. So once I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is to try and lay my fabric properly, because now I want to stitch this side of the flap to this part of the zip. So I'm going to lay it out properly the way it should sit, and then know how I'm going to pin it down. Mind you, make sure everything is flat. This is what we want to have, a really nice flat curve here. So I'm going to go ahead first and pin here just to hold it down, because I don't want it moving. Then I'm going to flip my fabric, right? Are you seeing? Gently, so it doesn't move. Okay, I'm going to flip it this way, gently, so it doesn't move. Okay, flip it this way. Are you seeing what I'm doing? So make sure everything is still the same way, it has not moved. You have to be careful with this. So I'm going to quickly pin this down so that it doesn't move on me. So I'm going to quickly pin this down. Okay. All right, so as you can see, I have pinned it down, it's not moving. So I'm going to go ahead and now stitch this part down. I'm going to do that right now. So I've gone ahead and I have stitched this part now down to the second fly. Now it doesn't really matter if it gets very close to, you know, the zipper teeth or not, because it's going to be covered. So once you're done stitching, this is what zip is going to look like. Okay, so like I said, remember, it doesn't really matter whether it gets, you know, very close to this place or not, because at the end of the day, this is going to cover it. Okay, so this is what we have right now. Now the next thing we're going to do is to stitch everything down, okay, like this. So I'm going to go ahead first and arrange everything all over again, making sure that everything is laying nice and flat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and arrange everything so there is no pulling or dragging of any sort, and it's covering properly like it's supposed to. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this point. Okay. So just basically holding this down. Just holding this down. Now mind you, I'm not pinning it here, I'm only pinning the top one so that when I start stitching it doesn't move. So what you want to do is to mark 1.5 inch. So this becomes the center line, so you want to mark inwards 1.5 inch. Okay, so just take note of it. From that center point, we want to mark 1.5 inch. So I'm just going to do all of that. And then when you get to this point, go back and try to find out where you can just use your hand to like feel it or eyeball it to know where your stopper is. That's your zipper, the zip stopper. You can basically feel it. Okay, so it should, okay, mine is somewhere around here. So you want to go below that point, you want to go below your stopper. So so when you get here, you want to make a curve like this. Okay, please pardon me. Now you want to have a slight curve like that. Okay, now when you're doing this, please make sure that it does not exceed this your flap extension. Okay, make sure it doesn't like go below it, it's still on it, because we want to stitch everything together. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Make sure it doesn't come below this point, it's still on it, because we need to like sew everything together. So I'm just going to connect these lines. All right, so now once this is done, what we're going to do is this bottom one, okay, remember everything is supposed to face this way, but when stitching you're going to remove this other part, okay, the one for this other leg, you're going to remove it and make sure that it's facing this way. So we're separating it, okay, we're not putting it together. So if you like, you can go ahead and open it. So you want this part of it to be out of the way, not together with it. But we're going to bring it back together. So I want you to see what I'm doing right now and how I'm going to bring it back together to lock it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start stitching it. Okay. So I'm going to start stitching it so you see what I am going to do right there. Now take note, make sure everything is laying nice and flat. Always make sure everything is laying flat the way it should. It's very important. Let me just give this back. Okay. So now that one is out of the way. This is good. So now I will start stitching. I'm going to stitch following the line I created. So make sure it does not go beyond that point. Remember, this should be out of the way, please. Now, once you get close to that curve we made, you're going to back tack here a bit. Okay, then once you've back tacked it, do that a little bit more. Once you've back tacked it, you're going to raise, okay, and then the bottom thread, you're going to cut it. Okay, you're going to cut the bottom thread, but do not cut the upper thread. Okay, so the upper one is still there, but the bottom one has been cut. The reason why you cut it is because we want to flip this one now over to this side. Okay, we want to flip everything over because we want to stitch the bottom part together with this top one to lock it. So that's why you cut the bottom thread so that you can easily flip it. So once you've done that, we want to go ahead now and finish our stitching. So we're going to continue from where we stopped. So be careful. Now we're going to stitch, pin tack again, and then we'll finish the stitching. Be very careful. And then go ahead and cut and cut, and we're done. As you can see, we're done with it. Now let me show you what we did back then. Are you seeing it? We sewed up to this point and then flipped this other one and then continue sewing, just so we can lock this together in place. Okay, just so we can lock it in place. Now when you open your zip, are you seeing it's locked? Okay, so this is what we want to have. This is definitely what we want to have. So I'm going to go ahead and iron this part. Okay, you can do it now, you can do it later, but basically that is all you need to know about fixing a zipper fly. Now there are other easier ways you can sew it, but this is a professional way it is being done for you to have that perfect pants type of fly, you know. This is how it's actually done. So you can see everything is covered. You can't even see the zip, it's not showing, everything is covered. So if this video have been helpful to you, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't done that before, please do so. I would really appreciate your support because it will encourage me to do more for you guys. So I hope this video was very helpful, and I hope to see your tryouts and how it goes. Thank you guys for joining me once again. Please subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.